I'll see you in a bit. I'm just popping to the shops.
Okie dokie.
Oh my. There's an injured bird down here.
Oh no.
Yeah. Maybe grab the cat carrier and I'll get it to the vet. We'll get it cleared away.
Yeah.
Bye. Oh. Okay, buddy.
Yeah,
okay.
here you go.
You be chill. Excuse me.
Hello?
Yes, I hadn't finished yet. A fox in a dinner jacket? What? That's very unusual. Also, I guess the talking thing should probably
I mean,
be...
that maybe too.
It was very rude of you. I hadn't finished my meal and you appear to be trying to hurry me away. Do you know who I am? Some sort of talking dinner jacket
Yeah.
fox? A fancy fox. Are you the fancy fox? The fanciest fox in town? Well, yes, but that's beside the point. I hadn't finished my meal and appear to be trying to clear it away. I mean, it did just appear to be an injured bird in a driveway, so I thought it probably best to try and, Okay, well, I guess... sorry, bird friend. No, it's fine. I suppose this is... what I've just got to live with.
Or not, as the case will be.
Oh, yes, I suppose so. Greetings, strangers, queer and pleasant. I'm not Laura Kate Magnet Dale.
And I'm not Jade Aerith Magnet Dell. Definitely not mid-yawn there during the intro to the show. Welcome to Queer and Pleasant Strangers. It's a podcast with two queer trans women. That's us. We're wifey types.
Yeah.
Have a bit of a catch-up and do silly voices and talk about media we've consumed in the week.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. It's been travel left, right, and centre recently.
It has. You buggered off to Cologne.
I did. I went to Germany, to Deutschland,
Deutschland.
and many video games were attention was paid to.
Well, we better start talking about video games then.
Yeah, I got a lot of them, and I'm not going to talk about any of them in any great depth, but I played a lot of things, and I can say a few things about a lot of them. Let's get some of the ones that I can just really quickly get out of the way. Stalker 2. It is a first-person shooter where you are in the Chernobyl nuclear fallout zone, and you gotta... your main character... I don't know whether he's joking, being sarcastic or literal here, but he has an artifact that he claims he found in his washing basket at home. That is a special artifact from the Chernobyl exclusion zone. He just found it in his washing, and he's now got to take this big device and plug it into some weird anomalies to charge up the artifact for reasons, but he's not meant to be there. There's military vehicles everywhere. And
sometimes you lose a sock, sometimes you gain a weird
artifact, device. Yeah. I played, my understanding is, the first half hour opening of the game, and the best thing the best way I can describe Stalker 2 is, that sure is a video game that would prefer, rather than teaching you its mechanics, would prefer to just let a thing you didn't know would kill you very quickly kill you, and then you reload and you go, what was that killed me? I guess I better work that out.
You see, but the thing you need to do is when the enemy is shooting at you, to move out of the way and not be shot by the bullets.
Yes. I may have had an experience with my Gamescom demo for that game that at some point I will talk about. And it will work out how I wish.
Simply don't be shot.
Simply don't be shot.
Terribly playing woman.
Silly woman folks. Simply don't get shot. At some point I will talk about this experience once I've worked out how I want to talk about it. Another one I can very quickly talk about. I played a half-hour demo for Path of Exile 2, which Path of Exile, if you've never played it, is what if a top-down MMO was a single-player game, basically? Ooh. What if your fantasy, World of Warcraft-style game was just a single-player one of those?
Okay.
It's got all your attacks on cooldowns and the, camera perspective, but you're doing little single-player quests.
Okay.
And I played as a witch, and I very quickly created a build. My understanding is this demo was, basically what the start of the game would be, and I very quickly had a build that was entirely about having a fun little skeleton army, and that was very cool.
Excellent.
I found a wand I could hold that let me summon 2 skeletons to come help fight with me, and if they got killed, there was a little cooldown timer, and then they would automatically resummon.
Nice.
And I found a spell that was like, I summon big, spiky bone growths out of the ground,
Uh-huh.
and if they do the final damage that kills an enemy, that enemy comes back as like a skeleton scorpion that for a short amount of time will run around doing damage for me.
Hell yeah.
So it was like, do my regular attacks until enemies are weak, kill them with the big spikes. Now I have a little army of scorpion skeletons, run to the next group of enemies before the scorpion skeletons go away, let my little skeleton army do all the fighting. And that was pretty fun.
That sounds fun as heck.
Yeah, like, honestly, I was like 10 minutes into the game, and I had become the skeleton summoner of skeletons, and it was pretty cool. 2 big things that I noticed that were different from the first Path of Exile. The original Path of Exile, you had to put, like, gems that activated things, like, that gave you some of your spells and things, had to be put into armor, and that got really awkward if you found a new piece of armor but weren't at a place to, like, take the gems out and put them into something new, or, like, different numbers of slots.
Right.
And it made, like, swapping armor really fiddly, because it was gonna fuck up, like, what gems for spells you had equipped and having to find them again. You now just equip those gems to your character, like, not to a specific piece of armor.
Oh.
That's just a nice convenience thing.
That's some quality of life right there.
Right, isn't it just? And I like what they've done with the bosses. The bosses feel a bit more involved. I fought against a big worm thing in a cave called the Behemoth that was, like, snaking up and down through the ground, so, like, you could see bits of it that had surfaced and then gone back down still there, and it was attacking with, like, both the front and back of the worm were doing different attacks.
Uh-huh.
I was like, that's a cool design. It's a bit more involved, like, mechanically than some of the ones from the first game, as I remember them were. It was kind of cool if you're in the mood for just a what if a MMO was just single player, and that was kind of fun.
I mean, that's the only kind of MMO that I'm into.
Right? Oh, yeah, I'm gonna skip ahead and talk about one that might be my favourite thing I played at Gamescom.
Oh, yeah?
Maybe the most interesting thing I saw. It was a game called All Will Rise, and I apologise in advance, this game is fucking impossible to find on the internet currently. The developers have not done a good job of having it have a presence on the internet.
Your SEO is terrible.
I have been insistent, be like, have a good internet presence, because I want to point people at your game. And it's, like, clearly reasonably far along. They had, like, an hour-long demo available at Gamescom. But the gist of it is a deck-building, Phoenix Wright-style courtroom game that is written by Meg Giant, who was the writer behind 80 Days, Boyfriend Dungeon, Thirsty Suitors. So good lefty feminist queer writing that I very much enjoy. The plot is, you are part of a group of lefty activists in India who have managed to set the legal precedent that this river in India has legal personhood.
Yes.
And if you were to, like, damage or pollute or harm this river, it would be akin to harming a person. And very quickly your group of activists has to go, did not actually expect that argument to work. What do we do to capitalize on this? How do we, like, scramble to move forward? And in the midst of this, your legal precedent gets put to the test because you wake up one morning and the river is full of toxic chemicals and set on fire.
That's not good.
No, it's not good. So you're now having to do, like, Phoenix Wright style, like, investigate the crime, learn what you can, to eventually go do, like, the courtroom drama.
And if you don't save the river in 3 days...
And there's, like, 2 parts to it that I think are both really interesting. The investigation phase is a really good representation of the difficulty of wrangling volunteer political activists, particularly on the left, that have the same end goals they're fighting for, but might not agree on the means of getting there.
Right.
So, like, you are the main person in this group of activists you're playing as. You are the only, like, full-time person working on this. You have a couple of other people with you who are, like, part-time, and they have X number of hours a week and X amount of energy to spend on working on this cause, and you'll have, like, oh, I need to send someone to go talk to the old people and see if they know anything. I need to send someone to go try and shake someone down. How much time is that going to take up? How can I manage their time so that they're doing as many things as is possible? who do I send to go do these tasks? Like, is this person, okay with a bit of political violence if it's necessary? Is this person a bit more like, no, we have to do everything by the rules? Working out, like, who the right people to send on specific jobs are to not hurt your own, sort of, the optics of your fight. But then the courtroom drama bit is that you're basically you're trying to win arguments. You've got these, like, 4 different stats, and you're basically doing deck building to try and, at the end of each round, it'll be like, oh, this stat, whoever's winning on this stat at the end of the round wins this bit of the argument. And all of your cards are earned through narrative interactions. So one example I can think of early on was, in a really, like, quite, negative moment, my character was offered, like, do you want to try and find some joy in this kind of shitty thing that's happened just to, like, not feel quite so depressed about it? And in response to that narrative choice, I got a card that was called something like Fleeting Joy, or it was something like that. It was a card that was, like, very specifically, this is not a lasting feeling that you have had. This is, you grabbed onto something very, very transient and fleeting, and you got a specific card to do with that I was like, I like that it recognised something about the narrative choice I made, and the card that I have added to my deck sort of reflects that narrative moment.
Nice.
And even if you lose a sort of argument with a character, you might have narrative choice moments during that sort of back and forth with them that unlock new cards for you. So even if you lose a narrative debate with a character, you will probably come away from it with new cards that'll make it easier for you to win if you retry. Really interesting game. A lot of the writing's very strong. I think that there is a really interesting basis of a game in here. Little bit of a connected story to this. I think like 5 years ago, I think it was like late 2019, went and judged a university game jam in the Netherlands on the topic of environmentalism and sustainability. And the person who was working on the game and showing the game off at Gamescom was someone that I know from the sustainability and environmentalism game jam. And I was like,
Yay.
That's really cool. I'm glad to see a cool environmentalism-focused game came out of that.
Yay.
I'll turn it over to you for a second. What have you been playing
I've not
recently?
played a huge amount of stuff. I've been busy painting. But I will talk about the amount of the thing that I've been painting that we played.
Yeah.
So the Deep Rock Galactic board game expansions showed up. So we played a bunch of the Space Rig expansion, which does its own little take on the concept of the deep dive. Previously it was like, just do continuous missions and go as far as you like. And we, over the course of a couple of sessions, went through the entire mission book for the base game. This does some interesting stuff. This gives you a set of cards that you can shuffle. You can have as many or as few different missions in there as you want. And you shuffle, you pick one, and that's going to be your mission that you're going to play. And you will also have modifiers like in the game. So you might have things like stalagmites don't ever have anything in them. They're just completely wasted if you happen to smash them. So still good for blocking line of sight, but apart from that, not particularly useful.
Yeah.
Which can be really difficult if you're desperate for certain things, but it also gives you like little missions to do. So extra things for like, hey, if you can mine 3 minerals in the same mission, or if you can kill one enemy with a pickaxe and another enemy with a grenade in the same turn, then you will get a bonus, and that bonus could be something like an extra throwable immediately, like a grenade or something. Or for the next round, you might get a beer, which adds a whole, like a long-term modifier to the next run, or to the next mission. It's always a set of 4 missions, and they get progressively harder, potentially by which mission you're doing, but also by virtue of the fact that it will have more and different modifiers.
Yeah.
So you'll start with 1 yellow, then you'll have 1 red, then 1 yellow and 1 red, and then just 2 red. It's a really interesting idea. And we played 3 out of 4 missions, mainly because we've been very busy beans.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to play a decent chunk of that. The different way it works, things like power ups. You've got a whole different type of power up, a little board that sits over your main character board that adds things like modifiers to how your pickaxe works, or how how sturdy you are based on what armor you've got, or a different visor attachment. It's it's a really fun thing. I'm looking for more of that. It's got a bunch of new mission types in it. So you've got the option for doing the mini mules, where you go and find the mini mules and then dig up legs, and then take them and attach them to the mini mules, fix them up, and then send that mission away. We did some oil mining, the on-site refinery mission, which was fun, laying down little pipes, and the way it incorporates the ability to ride on the pipes and like fast travel through the level. It was it was a good fun time. Really enjoyed that. And the other one was the drill dozer missions.
Yeah,
where the drill dozer's heading towards the Omron Heartstone. The drill dozer looked great. I think it's really adorable. The only thing that is missing is an ability to have like a removable head.
Yeah, so
that you can take with
back
you,
to the escape pod,
like in the game.
Yeah.
That would be really cute. But we also the Omron Heartstone has like a little crystal thing that goes inside the shell. So once you've completed the mission, you can like take the lid off it and carry the Omron Heartstone to Molly. It's a really cute idea, and I've really enjoyed it. It like the way it does, like it changes what's being pulled during the Heartstone missions. But yeah, and I've basically tonight finished painting all the stuff from the expansions.
Yeah, you did.
We haven't really had a chance to look at the biome expansion yet. That's like next on the list. But as I say, we've been very busy, so we've not really had a huge amount of time for boarded games, and I've been busy painting. So I've done lots of painting, and I've enjoyed that. What else? Tell us other things you've played.
More stuff that I played at Gamescom. I played a demo for a dating sim called Date Everything. You are in a house, and literally everything in that house is a romanceable character.
Including the toilet.
Including the toilet. I went and tried to date the toilet first because I have a lowbrow sense of humour and I thought it'd be funny. And the toilet was a shitty SoundCloud rapper. Where I was like, no, that is about the vibe of character I would expect for that. I at one point dated the text box for the game, who implied that no matter, like, if I'm dating one of the other characters and having to click on text boxes, that is a turn-on for her still during those moments. No matter who I'm dating, I'm still interacting with text box Chan.
Are you cucking the text box?
Maybe? Question mark.
Well, who am I to judge?
Maybe the best fit of characterization that I saw was the door is a bouncer. Is big and rectangular and decides whether you enter and exit places.
I was guess, like,
yeah. Clearly a lot of thought went into the very, very serious matter of what silly characterization should we give an inanimate object. And I respect the commitment to the bit.
Cupboard and shelf are different characters.
Yeah, of course they are. They're very different. Other things I played a demo for a game called Immortal. It's an indie game that caught my attention on social media because I saw some GIFs of it and the art style was really striking. It had a sort of... I wanted to say, like, stop motion, but it's more that it does a lot of, like, dramatic held frames for impact frames.
Okay.
That give it this sort of stop-start effect, but it's specifically to sort of emphasize contact moments.
Gives it a certain weight, I imagine.
Yeah, it was the art style that caught my attention first, but having played it, it's an interesting game. It is a sort of side-scrolling beat-em-up action game where your character has two combat styles. I'm just going to call them light and dark mode. They probably have other names, but they're basically light and dark mode attacks. And you can, like, swap between the two different control schemes mid-combo. But you have this meter down the bottom that is showing you, like, how much your balance of using one combat style or the other has swayed, and how far you are, out of balance on one of them or the other.
Right.
And if the bar reaches one side or the other, because you've used a lot of the light type or a lot of the dark type, you enter this really interesting risk-reward mode, where you can kill basically any enemy with a one-hit kill attack. You just walk up to them, press one button, you do a cool, flashy finisher, and they die.
Yeah.
But if you take any damage in that mode, and this mode lasts for like 15, 20 seconds, you will lose that combat style for a little bit of time, and it'll eventually come back, but you briefly have to fight with just only the other combat style. There's no health mechanic. The way that, like, death is handled is, let's say you use the dark type moves too much, and you go into the sort of frenzy mode, and you take some damage, and you lose the dark side abilities for a while. You can still use the light ones until the dark ones come back, but if you also lose the light side attacks, like while you're waiting, you build up the light meter, go into that mode, and lose your light mode attacks, that's when you get a game over. It's if you lose both combat styles at once, you go back to the checkpoint. But as long as you can keep one of your combat styles still available to you, there's no health meter to think about. Which I was like, that's an interesting way of making your combat mechanic, like the risk-reward combat mechanic, feel tied to your survivability. So yeah, it was a neat idea. I'm curious to see more of it.
Yeah.
I saw a game demo that was pretty early on in development for a game called Fudgy Dice. It is a RPG, like 1v1 battle game where you have like a dice tray in front of you, and you are rolling dice back and forth to basically try and end up with, like, whatever number of all of your dice end up adding up to once everyone's done all their rolls, will be the number that determines your attack stat or your defense stat or your magic stat as you do some RPG combat back and forth. But the way that you change those numbers are, you can use your mouse to sort of determine the direction that you're rolling your dice. You can roll them into other dice to hopefully change the numbers on them. Some of your dice in your dice pool will have special abilities, so it might be like the first die that you hit will permanently increase in value by 2, or the first one that you hit will take a permanent debuff, or will gets like a poison effect on it, so every time it's knocked after this it goes down a little bit each time. And there's mechanics you can do where you like combine 2 of your dice to get both of their effects at once, but the trade-off is it's now a smaller size of dice. So the maximum number you can roll on that dice is smaller, but you're activating more effects in a single roll. The main thing that I don't know if works right now is the characters have different unique... You pick a character to play as, and they have different unique abilities on the magic slot, and I don't know that the balance is there on them, because one of the 2 characters that we were playing with, one of them had... Your magic attack is, you do an attack with reduced damage output, but it can't be blocked. But the other character, the one I was playing as, is whatever the number of dice you rolled, you can heal that many health. And you could kind of just outpace... Like, the healing was reliably faster than the damage output that the unblockable magic attack would do. And it did not feel like the 2 of those were equal in terms of, like, the reward you were getting for using them. So, like, some of the unique character abilities need balancing a little bit. But the fundamental idea, I think, is interesting. I think there's some potential there. What about you? You played anything else this week?
That's
or am
it for me.
I'll just keep rattling off games for a minute, I guess.
Running.
I played a game called Project Timmy, Sasha's Curse. There's a game that Nintendo put out a few years ago called Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker.
I remember that.
Little dioramas, you run around trying to find all the hidden collectibles and, like, rotating the level around to, like, try and see where you've got to sneak into to find your little objectives. This is indie, not Nintendo-published Captain Toad. It's more Captain Toad. It's got, like, a mechanic of its own that I think is kind of interesting. Sometimes there will be monsters in levels, and you can place a trap down on a bit of the level, and the monsters always, like, walk back and forth in a predictable pattern. And there is a little bit of a music rhythm element where, like, the enemies will move, like, on the beat of the music, and if you set a trap on a space, you press a button in time with the beat as the monster steps onto the trapped space, and you use magic and defeat the monster. And I'm like, cool, that's an interesting mechanic of your own. Generally speaking, though, I played this demo, I was like, it's more Captain Toad. And I'm all here for more Captain Toad.
Captain Toad's Treasure Trapper.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I played a bit of Civilization 7.
Yeah. Is it more Civ?
It's more Civ. It's more Civ. From the small amount of it I played and the things I learned about it while I was there, here's what I can tell you. You can now choose a civilization and a leader of a civilization that don't necessarily match.
Right.
In the, like, when you're deciding who to play as and what place to rule, you'll get a little icon on places that are like, it would make historical sense for Augustus of Rome to rule over Rome in this era. It would also make sense in Egypt because, like, the Roman Empire was getting their foothold in there by that time. And, like, it'll sort of point you towards, these are places that might be synergistic with this character or, you know, make sense with history as it was in the real world. But if you want to have Augustus be, like, you know, the ruler of North America in the Age of Antiquity, sure, you can do that. And if you can find a weird interaction between leader bonus and some region bonus that does something interesting, yeah, go ahead with it.
Oh.
The other thing, and this was not something I got to see in practice during my time with the game, but during a presentation about it, is that you don't have to necessarily stick with the same civilization the whole way through all 3 ages this time. The way it works is that the way it was sort of explained to me was you, as, say, in this example, Augustus, are ruler of an empire rather than just one individual civilization, and in your move between one age and the next, you might want to shift your focus to watching the development of another region within your empire.
Right.
Is the sort of, like, the narrative conceit of what's going on here. And it'll be things like, let's say you started in Egypt, you will be offered, like, there'll be one place that you're offered as a choice for next era that is because you started in Egypt. Like, starting in Egypt will offer a certain one as a follow-up.
Right.
If you invested in more than 30 horse resources in the first region, you might get offered Mongolia, because Mongolia was big on horses. If you, depending on what leader you started with, like starting with Augustus, would give you a specific place you could go in the second era that is connected to the leader. And, like, various things you do in the first age will give you options of, like, oh, you specialized into this thing that was the speciality of this region. You can have that be part of your empire and start watching that one in the next era if you like. I was like, that's an interesting idea. Didn't get to play around with it, so I don't know how it works in practice. But one thing I can talk about is one of the things they sort of wanted this changing civilizations between eras thing to do was to be an excuse for you to be able to shift your victory condition focus a little bit more easily as you shift between ages, rather than being like, whatever decision I made in, like, turn 3 I have to stick with and there's no room for course correction. And the thing I was able to sort of play around with a bit is, at the start of each age you will get offered, like, one of your advisors will go, what kind of development path do you think you're likely to go for in this age? And you're not forced to go for that thing throughout the whole age, but you will be given quests that will help you towards victory in that sort of development path.
Yeah.
And if you do those things, you will get rewards that will carry forward to the next era. So it's like, you're rewarded for sticking with a plan and given sort of guidance on how to do it well and rewards for having done it, but you have a couple of points in a campaign where you can sort of course correct if you sort of wish to.
Okay.
I was like, that's interesting in theory. We'll see how it works in practice. At its core, it's more Civilization, and I think anyone picking up another Civ probably wants it to be more Civ, but with a couple of things that make it feel different. And it
And
sure...
whizzier graphics.
Yeah. It sure seems to be that. Although, it's apparently coming to Switch, and if the footage in that Nintendo Direct today was to be believed, it looks alright.
Yeah.
I'm impressed at how well it scales, if that was accurate footage.
I'd be interested to see if it was like, yeah, the graphics are all absolutely spot on exactly as the PC, but the turn times are,
I mean,
the turn times.
that would be my guess, if anything, is where that would be hidden.
Yeah, that's usually where the cracks start to show.
Yeah. Other ones I can quickly talk about. I played a demo for Monster Hunter Wilds. That's another game that sure is like the previous games in its own series. It sure is more Monster Hunter. The big difference is, instead of having like a wolf to ride around on, like the last one on Switch, you now have like basically a chocobo. You can still do the running around fast on its back thing, but also it can leap dramatically across like big cliffs and things because it's got big springy legs because it bird.
Ooh.
But the big difference is, now when you're attacking a monster, you'll sometimes see sort of glowing red points on it that are wounds that are forming. And if you can do damage to that specific part of the monster, it'll cause that point to burst and to do a big burst of damage. And the way that you can sort of capitalize on that is you can hold down L2 to have like a slightly first-person targeting thing.
Yeah.
That if you point at like that point on the enemy and then do your attacks as normal, it will hit that point on the enemy, trying to like focus the damage on it to get that burst of damage. Again, feels like Monster Hunter with like one new thing where I'm like, cool, yeah, that's one new thing to play around with in otherwise unchanged Monster Hunter, that game that is good and I kind of just want more of.
Yeah.
So I have no real complaints about that. I'm like, sure is more Monster Hunter.
Yay.
I will enjoy more Monster Hunter.
Hoorah.
Last few things that are not necessarily like Gamescom demos in the same way as the rest of these. I've been playing a game that existed on PC before, but it's just come to Switch, and it's reminded me that I wanted to play it again. Peglin.
It's Peggle with a little goblin and an RPG.
It's roguelike RPG Peggle, where you get different kinds of orbs to use in Peggle that do different kinds of abilities, and they like hit the pegs in different ways with different manners, and you make little choices about what upgrades you're going to get to impact your pool of balls you're playing Peggle with to do damage at enemies and try and do RPG fights, but it's Peggle.
Yeah.
I very much enjoy Peglin. It's silly, it's goofy, it's a nice excuse for randomized Peggle boards with like some dramatic tension to do good at Peggle.
Does it still have good effects for I made it all explodey?
It's not nearly as Ode to Joy dramatic. Yeah, like, it doesn't do that, but you do get to see like a big monster with like 1,000 health that is slowly stomping towards you, like one step per turn, and then you manage to kill it like one turn before it gets to you and hits you with its big fucking knife. You're like,
Knife!
yeah, I peggled just good enough.
Yay! Got pegged, fool!
I started playing a game called Desvelado.
Desvelado.
It is a beautifully hand-drawn, animated, 2D perspective platforming game where you play a little bat in a little tux, a little vampire bat in a tux, and each room of this castle you're exploring has a number of candles, and you are just trying to turn out all the candles in a room to be able to go to the next room. And certain candles will like give you a mid-air dash, so that you can get to like hard to reach areas, and sometimes there'll be ghosts in the room that they'll be flying on a certain path, and if they touch a candle, they'll turn the candle back on, so you're like having to turn all the candles out quickly before a ghost gets back around and turns a candle back on, and all sorts of little silly wrinkles added to jump around a room putting out candles as a cute little ghost, a little bat.
Sweet.
It is. I'm having good fun with it. It's been quite nice.
Yay.
And the last one that I will talk about in more depth in the coming weeks, I'm sure, but I've been playing around with this, particularly this last few days, is the Proteus controller.
The Proteus controller?
The BioWave Proteus controller, which I will have a big lengthy video on by the end of this week going up.
Pretty lengthy.
It is pretty lengthy. For anyone who doesn't know anything about this controller, it is an accessibility controller for Xbox and PC that is a bunch of cubes, and each of the cubes has like circular openings on all the faces that you can plug little components into that are buttons, and you can sort of connect the cubes together however you want, and then plug all the buttons onto them however you want, and make your own custom little controller.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing to get out of the way about this, and it's the big barrier to recommending this controller, is it is $300.
Yes, it is.
It is a pricey controller.
It is the most expensive of all of them, right?
Yeah. So up until this point, the most expensive accessibility controller for console of the entry level ones was the Hori Flex for Nintendo Switch, which was £180, which was more expensive than either a pair of PlayStation Access controllers or a Xbox adaptive controller with a Logitech adaptive gaming kit. Neither of those was as expensive as the Switch option, and this is not quite double the price of the Switch one, but it's 1.5 times the price of the Switch one.
Yeah.
And that sort of means that you're gonna need to go into if you this is really only a device for people who either can see a use case that this is gonna solve that none of the other options are gonna solve, or for people who've had a chance to try it out at a convention and check that it does do what they hope it would do.
Yeah.
There is a lot of utility that I can see in this, and I think the big use cases that I can talk about up top are, it is probably the best controller out there right now in terms of, I want to create a custom one-handed controller with a customizable layout for doing so. I think that it serves that use case very well. If you just want a really small controller with all of your inputs really condensed and close together, if there is just one thing about a standard controller that just does not work for you, that moving one input somewhere else would make a world of difference, this is going to allow that in a way that a lot of other custom controllers probably won't. The thing I'm most excited to use this for is to be able to have split-handed controls on Xbox, and this will be able to do that, kind of, but can't quite right now.
Right.
The kit ships with 2 power cubes, which are the ones that power the controller and transmit data to the console.
Right.
So 2 of those, I was like, cool, I'll build 2 controllers, 1 power cube in each, and, use co-pilot mode to make them back into one controller at the other end. But there's only one USB dongle included in the $300 package, and that dongle will only connect to 1 power cube at a time. So you can pre-order for $30 more an additional USB dongle.
So almost, why are there 2 power things in the thing?
So
could that not have just been a regular cube and saved some money?
So my understanding is that they were hoping... my understanding is the devs were hoping that they could find a software-side solution to make one dongle work for multiple power cubes.
Right.
So that this kind of setup would be feasible out the box, and it just didn't work out that way. I suppose as well, if you wanted to use this kit, I'm sure there are some things you could... The fact that there's 2 power cubes, you could have them both charged up inside the one controller and basically double the battery life of the thing. I can see some use cases, but yeah, unless you are willing to spend another $30 plus shipping for an additional dongle that who knows when it will show up, that's not yet a feasible solution. I think this is a really interesting controller. It feels very premium, which is good. It's important. At that price point, it's fucking better. It's very satisfying to put together. The big test is going to be how well this thing holds up over time, how good the connections feel after weeks or months of assembly, disassembly, recombining, whether it still feels as solid in the form factors you put it together in, and as premium a few months from now is a big question. Because, it's going...
Well, you've been using it as a fidget device, so
I
guess you will be the first one to be able to tell us how
I've been deliberately making probably more use than most people would of connecting, disconnecting, inputting, taking apart. So we'll see. Because, at this price, it needs to be a long-lasting, sturdy product. It needs to really stand the test of time at this price.
Yes.
And that's something I just can't answer yet, but... Super interesting controller. I am very into it with the understanding that I am in a privileged position to be able to, to be able to pick one of these up without thinking about it too much for work is not the position most people looking at this controller
Indeed.
are going to be in.
Most people aren't going to be going, yes, I can put that on my tax return because it is a work expense.
Most people aren't going to be able to go, I've got one arriving in a few months, but I could buy a second one now to be able to get on, to be able to do the work earlier. That is a position I know is not the position of the average consumer of this, and I can both go, this thing is amazing, and
this thing is too expensive.
This thing is prohibitively expensive in a way that makes me hesitant to recommend it carelessly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's everything I've played this week.
Well then,
time for this.
Do you ever consider what it would be like if you were, just little and maybe you happened across a giant English muffin? Imagine, you were a little bit chilly maybe, you could get inside the nicely toasted English muffin, be all warm in there. Imagine that, eh? Think about it, you could be all warm and toasty cozy inside the English muffin. What do you think of that, eh?
I mean, the way you describe it does sound nice.
Yeah. Well, what if I happen to have a really big muffin that would make you feel like a little tiny small person that could enjoy just, being all toasty, warm, cozy in the English muffin?
Look, I'm sorry. I can't help but notice you are a very large dragon.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, and that's why I have access to very large muffins if you happen to want to be nice and cozy warm.
And I can't help but suspect
that
you maybe have ulterior motives for hoping that I would fall asleep inside the dragon-sized
You don't
English
have to
muffin.
fall asleep, if you might just want to be like, this is lovely and cozy. I'm just going to have a little curl up and snuggle in here because it's it's a lovely, lovely, cozy, toasty English muffin. Nom nom nom.
Nom 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 is the problem.
Also warm. Well, I mean, I suppose you could probably eat some of the blankets, as long as it's still, some of it there to keep you nice and cozy.
I'm going to go be cozy somewhere that you aren't going to eat.
Bugger, I was hoping for breakfast in bed. Well, breakfast in hoard, I guess.
Oh god, I can't wait to board and get in my seat. It's gonna be
just as long as there's no one kicking the seat back or anything.
No, it's gonna be a long flight, but we'll be there soon. It's been a bit of an early morning. Huh.
Yeah.
Huh. There's a lot more kids here than I would usually expect.
I don't know. This is the first time I've left the country since 1997.
Yeah. Well, there's usually not as many unattended kids.
I'm sure they're attended. They're probably just not well tended.
I don't know. They're also looking real fucking fancy.
I don't know what children look like these days. Is this a new fashion? I remember Burberry being a thing for a while.
A lot of them are wearing crowns. That seems a bit out of place for me. Okay, give me a second. I'm gonna go ask. Hi, sorry.
What peasant?
What's going on here? There's a lot of you, a lot of you very small royal-looking children here. Oh, yes, about that. Sorry, I think you've come to the wrong place. This is the airport.
Ding. Yes. Yes. So, what have you put in your eyes?
We've been watching a thing together, by which I mean you've watched all of season 1 and I've watched the first 3 out of 8 episodes.
You've watched half of it, yeah.
Yeah, I've watched nearly half of it. Shall we talk about Kevin Can Fuck Himself?
Yes.
Or Kevin Can F Himself?
Yes.
This show is what if one marriage was both a sitcom and a serious, devastating drama?
Yes.
What if every time the husband was in the room, it was a silly, goofy sitcom, and then every time the wife was alone, it was a depressing drama about the terrible, terrible marriage she is trapped in.
Not just any sitcom, like a proper 90s US.
Yes.
I'm trying to think of any US fucking series now. Fucking Married with Children.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's probably like a particularly good example, because although the husband in this is not perhaps as grumpy as the main character in that, he is selfish and destructive and does not care at all about anything.
In the ways that those kind of sitcom husbands always were, and the laugh track is there to try and make you go, oh, he's being him again. Okay, don't think about it too hard.
Isn't it funny how he's like, I don't want children because there shouldn't be anything cuter than me in the house?
Oh, isn't it funny that he cancelled the fancy dinner in order to have a
rage-aversary.
A rage-aversary with all of his celebrity footballer lookalikes in the back garden.
With all his friends and his boss. Oh no, wait, his boss is coming. So his wife, who it's their anniversary, is going to have a boring adult party in the front room with a charcuterie board that she's going to have to make.
Yeah, how silly and wacky will these hijinks...
she gets to make.
She gets to make. Yes, how silly and wacky will these hijinks be? And then the door shuts and it's just, this is a very quiet, somber room, or I'm sat in a room with a man I do not know and it's incredibly awkward.
The lighting's different, the shots are completely...
The focal length and the shoot style are different.
Yeah.
It is impressive how instantly, on the turn of a fucking dime, they can just, like, completely shift the vibe of this.
Yeah.
I think the way I described it when I was watching that first episode was, it's like when someone takes a trailer for a film and recuts it with different music to change up the genre.
Yeah, like when
maybe
people
they've
do
applied
those.
filtering and stuff
it's
over
the
it.
Stephen King's It trailer, but what if it was like a goofy romance novel in like the whole rock style?
And it's like, it's simple things like going from a fixed camera single shot on like the one room to tracking shots of close up on faces,
like shots from like quite low down.
Yeah, like completely different soundtrack choices.
Yeah,
and the stark. It's so often when someone either walks through a door or a door shuts, just everything instantly, like, very jarringly shifts.
Yeah,
and it's this real whiplash of. Suddenly the artifice of like, oh, we're supposed to find this endearing and silly just instantly falls away.
Yeah. And the men exist in one world and the women exist in a very different world.
And any time the man is around, you have to exist in his world.
Yep.
Like, your reality is subsumed by his when he's in the room.
Yep. It's fascinating.
Yes.
But like, even when it's trying to be like, ha 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 ha, the stuff Kevin does is just really fucking shitty. And it gets worse when you get to, I think it's the third episode where they're talking about, they go on like a road trip. Two characters go on a road trip. And it's like, oh yeah, well, like, you remember when we all joked about the fact that like it was going to be really funny because you were going to go to law school. And it turned out like the main character had at one point like got a loan to go to law school, and then the husband had been just like really shitty and started being really jealous and going, oh yeah, you're sleeping with your boss or whatever, to get her to like drop out of it, and then spent all of the fucking money from her student loan that she's still got to have to pay back.
It's the thing I think that like it does really well is because of how jarring it is when it shifts to the like dramatic, serious version of things, is that even when it's like doing all the sitcom tropes and all the sitcom trappings are there to try and lighten the mood, you've seen behind the veil, and it's impossible to fully put out of your mind.
He's still a shitty version.
Like, there is a version of this scene that we are not getting to see that is the cold, emotionally devastating version of this scene that we know is happening.
Yeah.
That, like, is being plastered over by a happy smile.
Yeah.
And, like, that...
Like, you can read a toxic positivity thing into this. You can read a whole, like... just the misogyny of, like, 90s sitcoms.
It is fundamentally, I think, a story about someone trapped in a really, really, really bad marriage who is trapped by, a combination of those occasional moments where, you think maybe this person's not as bad as I've convinced myself, but also those moments of, if I admit that they're bad and I need to get out, that means having to admit that I've wasted years of my life.
Yes.
And, that's a hard thing to admit and to walk away from. It's a really, really, intense and, I think largely well-handled depiction of, the reasons it's sometimes really hard for a person to leave a relationship they know is no good.
Yes.
And to feel like just walking away isn't an option. Something more dramatic needs to happen for me to be able to go.
Yeah, but I also think it fits decently into that whole, almost 1970s thing of, the family savings he keeps hold of because she admits she's not good with money. So she doesn't really have any of her own stuff. She doesn't really...
Well, yeah.
She doesn't really have any friends. She doesn't seem to, have any family that's ever mentioned.
Well, yeah, I don't think it's too spoilery to say of the first episode, the thing that makes her realise she needs to leave is the same thing that makes her realise she does not have nearly the means to leave that she thought she did.
Yeah.
She has considerably less ability to leave upon realising she needs to leave.
Yes.
And, that is really well handled for a show that is also, dipping in and out of this. It reminds me of Severance in terms of, the stark difference in the ways that, one actor will play the same character in very different ways, in that stark divide between the two realities being presented. It's got a lot of that same energy, but...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I also... Don't get us wrong, we've talked a lot about how the husband in this relationship is terrible. She's also not a good person.
She's sure got her problems.
It gives me vibes of first season of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
She is making some self-destructive choices that are having consequences that are further reaching than she's maybe stopping to consider they could be.
And watching how, she made this one slightly rash decision of revenge against this one person, and seeing how that has, a cascade effect on other things that are happening to her.
She is digging herself into some holes.
Oh, yeah.
Because she's just living in... That's the thing, she's living in an entirely different genre to her husband.
Yeah.
She is fucking Walter White in Breaking Bad or Light in Death Note, making bad choice after bad choice that are sort of spiraling.
Yes.
While husband is what goofy hijinks am I going to get in today? Whoa!
Yeah.
And that is not a recipe for a healthy relationship.
Yeah. And I won't spoil it because you haven't got to the end of the first season, but that first season, it goes some places before it gets to the end.
Yes, it's definitely that second episode sort of established, oh, this is going to be a season-long something going on. But I'm very curious to see more of it. So yeah, that's Kevin Can Fuck Himself.
Yeah.
Very interesting show.
Yes.
I believe it has 2 seasons, and that's
So far,
it.
yeah.
It's I believe. I mean, I think I saw somewhere that season 2 is where it ends.
I don't know. I've heard people saying they want a third season. I don't know if that's just wishful thinking or if it's on the cards, but
I don't know for sure either.
I have seen people talking about it, so...
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about something else we watched?
What else did we watch?
We watched Alien Romulus.
We did watch Alien Romulus, a film we have complicated thoughts about.
Yeah.
Should we start with what it did well?
Well, first of all, it's a new film in the Alien franchise. It seems to be trying to go back to classic aliens.
Yeah.
A little bit Alien 3.
Yeah.
It's less goofy than something like Alien Resurrection, for as much as I love that film.
It does a better job of, recognizing that one xenomorph should be a fucking threat.
For the most part, yeah.
For the most part. And I think even when it goes a little more big scale than that, it's only solvable in the temporary. Like, you know, I think they don't get into the you can just be gunning these things down as if it's nothing territory that some
True,
Alien
yeah.
content gets into.
And I think it does really interesting things with that concept of you can't just go gunning around with that, and which I appreciated. It managed to avoid what I think a lot of people had worried about watching initial trailers and like seeing the casting, because there seemed to be like a lot of fear from people that this was going to be, it's a teen horror movie in space with an alien.
Yeah, and it definitely doesn't feel like that. It definitely does feel like it's trying to be, here is a group of people trapped in a confined space with a very scary threat, scrambling to work out how the fuck do we survive this.
Yeah, and there are references to Prometheus without it being like, oh, we're going fully there, huh?
Yeah.
But also we're not following any of that shit up.
And again, there are things, before we get into the more complicated thoughts, there are things I like about it. I think that it captures the aesthetic of, like, ship designs in particular very well.
Grimy, weird padding in places.
The, like, work ships that feel very lived in, very cramped, very cobbled together, contrasted with, like, lab spaces that at one point were pristine and white and clean and sterile.
But everyone left in a hurry.
Yeah, that have, like, just started to rust a little at the edges, but are fundamentally still the spaces that they once were.
Yeah.
I think the inciting incident for how the threat is let loose is very well thought through.
Yeah.
I think they have a very good logical thought process of, why is this threat here? How is it unleashed? How does it start being a problem?
Yeah.
And I think that better than some of the later Aliens, it's not afraid to have its quiet moments of just quietly sit, not really showing you the thing. The thing could be anywhere. We're just having a bad time.
Yeah.
And I think last thing is, on those positives for me at least, was the practical monster stuff was very well done.
Yeah, it really was.
They resisted showing the creatures too early. The practical effects were, like, largely very effective.
Yep.
It
wasn't afraid to use a bit of darkness. It wasn't afraid to use silence.
Yeah. There's a lot to like, and I hope that this creative team gets another go to try this again, but they're going to have to fix some problems.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and quickly before we move on, I also like some more of the world building this does.
Yes.
Because this does start on a planet run by the company, seemingly, and talking about the bureaucracy of Weyland-Yutani and what it's like for people working within the company, and just the mundane horrors before you even get to the big horrors.
Yes.
Sorry, yes. Please, we then move on to aliens are happening.
Yeah, so I'm going to get my big one out of the way, which is, this film sure does love the idea of equating a motionless robot with autism.
It's got that vibe, huh?
It's really got that vibe. Like,
it's obviously not going to say it.
No, like
we see this a lot in sci-fi of, we need a robot character. We're going to give them maybe some stims, even.
Yeah, like, look, you could make an argument for some other conditions, but the what I saw it portrayed as was disabled. It really felt like an autism representation that was going on.
And, like, disabled isn't in question, because there is talk about, like, there's issues with, like, joint motors and things like that.
Yes, and it's very clear that, like, you need help from a carer support person, like, your family member person,
but also you've
having
got aged vibes.
Yeah, is having to do some, like, degree of caring for you.
Yeah.
And, like, there is a lot of really weird implications this film makes about, how do I put this? There's a lot of characters who have a lot of prejudices about synthetic sort of robot characters, and this film sure does seem at points like it validates a lot of their bigotry as being like, you were maybe right to worry that could be a thing.
Yeah.
And that feels really weird when there is so much overlap of autistic coding with the group that they were being bigoted towards, that, like, we were maybe proven true in our bigotry.
Yeah, like, I came at this at a similar angle, but not exactly the same as you, and I have problems that, to be fair, I'm not going to go into because it's quite heavily spoiler stuff. I came at it a slightly different angle. I still went, read that character as being autistic coded.
Yeah.
But then from a completely different point of view, going, what happens next to that character and another character, just going, we sure are getting a little bit horror tropey here. In a way that.
Yeah.
In a way that it feels really shit to do to the Alien franchise, because it has done such a good job in previous films of not that.
There's some misunderstanding of where some of the horror symbolism in Alien, what the purpose it is serving, and some maybe misapplication of some of the symbolism of horror.
Yeah.
Is that a good way to put that?
Sort of. I'm not really sure how else I would describe it, but like there are things that feel a little bit tropey in a world that felt like it has previously attempted deliberately not to be that.
Yeah.
It feels like there are issues with the way it handles certain things, or the way it just went, oh yeah, this is about that, but rather than just being the whole point of it being subversion, is going, well, no, we're subverting the subversion. No, what you're doing there is just doing the thing. Yeah. but we get to do another thing. And then, obviously, I'm speaking in vagaries, and apologies for that, but, like, I don't want to spoil it, because it's only been out, like, 2 weeks at this point. But also, then, on top of that, it tries to do fan service a couple of times by, like, just flat repeating lines or bits from previous films. And I genuinely felt a couple of times like, you haven't earned the right to do that.
Yeah.
Or just have the bravery to be your own thing. Because in many ways, like, you are doing cool stuff with the franchise.
Yeah.
Definitely better, I felt, than, like, Prometheus or Covenant.
The thing is, I think there's a lot salvageable here, and I think with a bit of tweaking and a bit of course correcting, I think there's a team here that could make a really good, like, genuinely very good modern Alien film. You need, particularly on the writing team, you need a bit of tweaking going on. Because, like, set design, acting, cinematography, the directing, so many of those elements really did hit the mark properly.
Yeah.
It's just that script makes some choices that really let it down in some places.
Yeah, we had a digital sort of character involved that I thought was really interesting. They still don't look great. Maybe it'll be another case of I will see it again on a small screen and go, actually, it works fine. Yeah. But the few times I've seen face replaced characters in like at a cinema, they generally speaking have not looked. They often look weirdly gummy, or the lighting isn't quite right. So yeah, but it was kind of like, ooh, that was interesting in a way. There were several points in this film when it was like, oh, is it going to be this? Yep, it is that. It is exactly what I thought it was. Ultimately, I think it is a better movie than several of the other films in this franchise.
I am glad I saw it on a big screen. Yeah. I had a good time with caveats watching it.
Even if we did wander home grumbling about basically the same things.
Yeah.
But that's not all we've seen. Yeah, we went and watched the original Star Wars trilogy.
We did indeed.
We did. Is this the first time we've seen it on a big screen?
Yeah, I believe so.
Also the first time I've seen it. I obviously had the opportunity to go in, 97 and watch the special editions, but I did not do that because I was working. So yeah, this was my first attempt to watch it on a big screen. It's, looks pretty good. For the most part, it holds up pretty well. Like the mixture of practical effects and puppeteering and, like stop motion stuff. It looks great. I think it's great. It's the first time in a while I've actually genuinely sat and watched Star Wars.
Like, paid attention to it as the sole thing you're doing rather than it's a secondary activity that's on and just sort of going through the motions with.
Yeah, because to be honest, like, I'm sure I watched it at least once as a child where I watched it, and then it was, well, we recorded it off the telly, so now it just gets put on while I'm playing with Lego.
Yeah, comforting background.
Yeah, and obviously it's, was on every freaking bank holiday and UDP as a child, so,
Yeah, it's the nice thing about, like, a film like this coming back to the cinema is you can be like, it's an excuse to, like, properly give it your attention again.
That series is funnier than I think people give it credit for, and it makes me all the more confused by the kind of dickheads who are like, you're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
Exactly. Why would you?
I very much feel like Harrison Ford is the consistent performance across those three films. Like, he understands that characterization, and he, like, consistently gets his character throughout that trilogy.
For a guy who didn't have a lot of acting experience before that.
His was the most consistent performance, I think. He was funny, he was always, like, a highlight in his scenes.
I don't know if I've got much older, but it was watching A New Hope and just going, Leia was so young. I think she's like 17 in that movie. It's weird when you were younger and you just go, they're adults, they look like adults, they're doing adult looks. And now I've got to an age where I'm just like, Carrie Fisher looks so young. Like, none of them look super young in that, like, 1970s, very early 1980s.
Yeah.
Somehow people looked older despite not being particularly old. And maybe it's, cinema, and maybe it's, like, two of the main actors being in car crashes between movies. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, had a really good time, and I'm glad I finally had that experience, even if it was the special edition versions.
Yeah.
Or the most recent editions. We got to hear McClunky.
We did get to hear McClunky.
A choice I will never understand.
Yeah, it was interesting in that there, without going into too many specific examples, there were definitely moments where I was like, I appreciated this more on this watch than I've done in the past.
Yeah.
Like, an example was the whole exchange between Han and Leia of, I love you, I know.
Yeah.
Like, on this watch, I was like, you know what, actually, this was kind of set up by the fact that it's been like an entire film at this point of, I know that you like me, I'm just trying to get you to admit it. And the first time
He's kind of a dick in the past.
he's being kind of a dick, but it's like, oh, yeah, it's the first time, like, she admits it. It's like, well, you've been denying me hearing this reciprocation this whole film. I'm going to give you that little denial now. But then it's paid off in the next one.
Yes.
When she does it in reverse. And I'm like, that's... Like, there was a bigger plan, and it doesn't feel quite as out of nowhere as I've always kind of felt it did.
Yeah.
There's moments like that where I was like, I appreciate some of this more on this watch. And it's always nice when you can watch a thing that you know really well and go, some of it's clicked better for me, finally. So that was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. Also, like, I think watching them so close together and watching them, I think that made it all the better. Yeah, I do miss the original ending to Jedi, because I thought that music was quite fun.
Yeah.
But also just, like, the nice crowd shots of, like, all the different planets and, like, spotting, like, where they were, and the whole galaxy is celebrating together, and for all the flack Jedi gets for little bears, just the whole concept of, like, no matter how, like, quote-unquote primitive you might think some people are, like, when everyone joins together and works together, you can overthrow a great evil.
Exactly.
By everyone coming together.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, important and empowering for like, people to see, especially young people.
Yeah.
In, 1981, I think?
Gosh.
Jedi?
Yeah.
So I was barely conscious at that point.
I was not.
You weren't due yet.
Not for a while.
Not for a while, no. But, yeah, it was nice to get to watch that. Yeah. What about you? Have you watched anything else?
I don't know that I've watched much else. I'm just double checking. It's been a week of travel and pouring video games into my brain, so I'm going to say no. I don't think I've really watched anything else this week. You?
No, that's it from me.
Well then, time for this.
Hey, Laura.
Yes?
We've got a new sponsor.
Who's our new sponsor?
Well, do you want door frame?
Door frame?
Like picture frame, but with door.
Okay.
It's a digital picture frame, right?
Okay.
It allows you to send photos from your smartphone to friends and family's photo frame in their home.
Oh, so like if I've had a nice little a nice happy moment and I want to share with my parents like, I did well at the big test or I won the
Yeah.
spelling bee, I can send a photo and it'll just pop up in their living room. They'll be like,
Yeah.
Laura won the big baking competition.
Laura won the big baking competition and they can celebrate with you. And they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, new thing happened.
New thing happened.
Yeah.
I see it because it popped up in my home.
Exactly, and it's for that specific, lovely, nice thing.
And not for anything else.
Not for, like, haunting pranks or anything like that.
Oh, so I shouldn't take a photo of myself up against a pane of glass with like a little speech bubble saying, "Help, I'm trapped in the photo frame. You've got to smash it to let me out."
You shouldn't wear some kind of mask and, like, shoot yourself with, like, a very white light in a very dark room with no background, so it looks like there's just, like, a glowing face in the corner of the room.
So I shouldn't upload to it family photos that my family know very well, but like each time I upload one, I have like a mysterious figure that starts getting more like solid and larger in the frame and moving forward in the shot with each picture.
Yeah, don't add Slender Man to the family photos.
No, I shouldn't have the mysterious figure, like, over the course of 2 weeks slowly be the entire frame.
Yeah, probably shouldn't do that. Probably shouldn't do that.
Just,
so that's
just nice picture of, like, I what did I do? I don't know. I surfed a big wave.
You hung 10.
I hung 11. I was so good.
That's Dora Frame. .lol.net. Enter the code Q&PS many, and you can get a discount on your first Dora Frame.
I definitely won't use it to share copyrighted movies one frame at a time like they're a flipbook.
It is a truth universally acknowledged. Inside the boardroom of Supremacy Software.
Hi. We got a problem.
Again.
I know.
Do you remember when it was all
I
money and, flogging the interns? And I love that. I was so happy with that, and now it feels like week after week after week, these meetings, they're just getting me down. What happened now? What could possibly have gone wrong?
It's pretty bad. Meter Polyneuce got out.
I thought we'd, really tight that guy down this time.
Yeah, he chewed through his own wrist to get his arm out the restraint so he could get out.
Okay, what does he overpromise this time?
So he showed game footage. That's something.
Okay.
He might have promised that absolutely every choice you make every second of the game is constantly branching the game towards one of 3 million endings.
Oh god.
He may have said that your real-life emotional state will somehow transfer into the game.
My real-life emotional state is going to transfer into his brain in a minute.
He may have promised that if you win the game, it will make you no longer feel depression. It will, literally chemically cure your depression if you beat the game.
Has he promised to make anyone a god again? That was really embarrassing.
He promised to make... Not a god this time. He did promise to make someone an all-powerful genie that could grant wishes, including the wish to make yourself god.
Right. But nothing to do with a god within the game that we're gonna have to make.
I mean, there's gonna be
foolish for having not made.
There's gonna be a genie, and the genie can wish for anything to happen in the game, meaning whatever that player decides, we're gonna have to rush to code somehow.
I mean, I'm fine with getting other people to rush to code things for us, but...
Yeah, but what when it's, literally impossible and there's, literally no way to do what he has promised?
Do we have to, put him in a concrete hot tub or something so he can't even get, any of his body out? He's just, a head and just locked in there.
I wouldn't put it past him to... I don't know, sweet torque the gods into pickaxing him out.
I appreciate his ideas. I do not want him talking to the press.
None of us want him talking to the press. As long as he has a mouth, he will keep doing it.
What if we simply removed his mouth?
We tried. He talked his way out of it with every surge, and he...
Goddamn.
Damn you, Meter Polyneuce.
Damn you, Meter Polyneuce. So, what have you put in your ear spaces?
Not a lot, but I
No?
listened to a couple of tracks.
You?
I listened to a song called Piss Punk by a band called Vile.
Right.
They're a sort of like grimy riot girl punk band. The song is very angry at men sort of underestimating women, trying to speak over them and take credit, etc.
Mm-hmm.
The things that stood out to me about the track, it has a really interesting middle section that completely drops out the pacing, starts very slow, and builds up its pace and momentum really interestingly.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a moment in this song, like 2/3 of the way in, that makes really good use of the sounds of men muttering, slowly sneaking louder and louder into the song, before creeping its way in, slow enough you might not notice at first, to then have to be told to shut up by the female vocalist, as a sort of, like, your beat drop moment is shouting at them to shut up and then kicking into the
Nice.
fast-paced bit of the track, and I was like, that's some fun creative choices you did. I also listened to a track called Accidentally Did Drugs by an artist called Third Person, but with 3 eyes in third.
Right.
And this is someone I know from TikTok, from doing interesting content on TikTok. This is a sort of folk punk song about accidentally eating spiked brownies without knowing that they were spiked, but ending up having a surprisingly good time. The song has a very good, but like, uncannily similar to like a Jack Black energy in the vocal delivery that works well for a song of that sort of slightly parody-ish nature.
Yes.
And the last one was, I've recently been listening to more of an artist I've talked about before, Candy Carpenter, who has songs about having neurodiversity and a fucked up nervous system, having her first crush be the Pink Power Ranger, and falling out of religion over time. And there's one of her songs that I hadn't really given a good shot to before this past couple of weeks that's called Everybody Goes to Hell. And it is a song about apologizing to her parents for no longer being Christian, but also addressing her own actions during the time in her life that she was a Christian, and a sort of apology to people that she may have wronged in that time in her life. Like, the song ends on an apology to a specific friend going, I'm really sorry for that one time. I called you up in the middle of the night sobbing and begging you to convert to Christianity because otherwise you were going to go to hell, and I didn't want my best friend to go to hell for all eternity. I'm sorry I put you through that. That was really unfair of me.
Yeah.
Like, it is an acknowledgement of, like, hey, religion is not for me anymore, but I do have to wrestle with, because of what I believed, I made choices, and I can recognize now that they were probably kind of shitty. And, like, it's a really interesting track. I very much love it. I think it is wonderful. So yeah, another really interesting, good, recommendable Candy Carpenter track.
Yay.
What about you? You been listening to anything this week?
I finally caught up with Dice Funk.
Ooh!
I was like 10 behind at one point, so I'm glad to catch up. Now I ran out of Dice Funk. I need my Dice Funk.
I mean, more episodes exist on my computer.
I know.
If you want to sneak ahead in the season, I can pass you on the drink cards that I get to hear.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, what has been going on in this Dice Funk season where you're up to? Because I don't know what's publishing. I'm a bit ahead of myself.
Well, we've had the tournament.
Yeah.
We have had the boss of the Banana Boys. You turn up at the
Banana Baron.
You turn up at the Banana Baron's place.
Oh,
and went into the cave. Something happened in the cave.
A dramatic event involving a knife might have happened in a cave.
Yeah, but also, like, there was something about the being in the cave that we don't know what that's going to be yet.
Yeah.
But you did get your friend back. That was the important thing.
Indeed, while making some compromises that I'm going to have to deal with later.
Yes, that's kind of been Barbella's whole thing.
Yeah.
This season, you've made a decision. Now you're going to have to deal with that. Reaper seems to be coming around to the concept that after getting her first defeat, that maybe she's going to have to,
Trust in the power of friendship.
trust in the power of friendship, and also learn that, you can learn stuff from defeat and come back stronger. What if defeat made you strong?
Made you strong, not weak? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Character growth all round, baby.
yeah. So it's interesting because like the day we record this, we're going to be recording the epilogue for this season,
Wow.
ready to go into the post-mortem. So yeah, I am right at the point where this season is wrapping up, and I'm really happy with this season overall.
I think it should be. It's certainly one of the best in a long time. Like, I know I said much the same about the last season. I think between you all, you've done a great job in the last 2 seasons. Like, you've really you've made it like a quantum leap in storytelling and just working together and like narrative, much of which has to be defined by the dice. I think you've all done a great job.
I'm impressed that we've managed it 2 seasons in a row where we've had 2 DMs telling 2 separate stories that interweave, and that has managed to come together at the end and feel like one story and not feel too disjointed and chaotic.
I think it has certainly helped in this, having Austin be a character on one side and a DM on the other, and the same for Quinn.
Yeah.
So sort of always present for every part of the story.
Yeah.
Making it much more easy to, because I think it would be harder to go, I'm DMing, but I'm not actually in the other side of the story.
Yeah, that was me last season, was
Yeah.
DMing in somewhat of a vacuum from what the other half of the story was doing, but I did my best to keep it going.
Well, I mean, I guess it helps if you've got, like, the drunk cuts to,
just about, but it was finding time to do those, yeah.
and weave.
Indeed. But
I think
yeah,
you did a great job.
I've been very happy with the last couple of seasons. They've been real interesting, and
you've told great stories.
I'm looking forward to doing the epilogue because I want to send my character off with a nice little send off.
Well, I mean, assuming you survived.
I mean, this is why I say my character. Who knows what could happen between where you're at and where I'm at?
Indeed.
Am I talking about Balbella? Who knows?
Well, yeah, that is a danger with Dice Funk. We haven't had like Quinn getting through like 6 different characters a season.
But yeah, you listened to anything else?
Yeah, I listened to an audiobook of Terry Pratchett's Maud from the Discworld books.
Yeah.
This is a book I have attempted to read multiple times, but every time I've picked up a copy, it has had like just a really horrible font that I've really struggled to read.
Yeah.
Slightly like mushy print, like I don't know, it feels like when it was being printed, it somehow ended up like with too much ink on the roll or something. The text feels too close together on top of that. So my dyslexic ass has really struggled with it, which is a shame because multiple other Discworld books that I've picked up and read have been the easiest books to get through. And people have said to me before, like, oh, you've got to read more, you've got to read Reaper Man in that order. And it's like, I'd love to, but I really cannot get through it because every time I find a copy or like a second, I like trawl through a second-hand section in a charity shop or whatever, it is always seemingly that same print. Maybe it's the same copy just coming back and back and back. And I've just never managed to make it through. So it was an 8-hour-ish reading of the book. I'm really glad I heard the story. It's a good story. I enjoyed it. Further, more cases of Death wanted to go on holiday or try something a bit different, and the chaos that ensued from that. Because I think there's something about that in soul music as well. Death buggering off and Susan briefly taking over. It's a really interesting story. I wish the reader, not the author. The author was fine. I wish the reader hadn't decided that they were going to do questionable accents for some of the characters from other places. I was like, oh no, please don't, please no, please no. But I didn't pay for it, so I don't feel like I gave anyone any money in that respect. So I didn't justify that choice. But yeah, it was nice to finally get to hear that story. And yeah, I've been pointed at sources for a few of the others, so I'm gonna try and catch up on some of the gaps in my Discworld knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I've always been a big fan of the witches. I have, in more recent years, come to enjoy the Watch and Vime stories, so it's looking forward to a few more of those.
Yay!
Yay! What about you? Have you listened to anything else?
That's about it for me.
Well then!
Time for this.
Hey gamers, watch our trailers for all these upcoming games.
Yay!
Aren't you excited for new gaming franchise?
Yeah!
Aren't you excited for new gaming old franchise?
Yeah!
Aren't you happy for all these new games coming to the console that you know and love and have loved for about one console cycle?
Hey, what's that behind you over there?
Just some curtains, just some very lovely plush curtains.
Is it a new console over there?
I couldn't possibly say it. I think you should absolutely ignore the warehouse full of cardboard boxes that say Nintendo Playbox 2 on the sides. That's not for you. Look over there by those games.
The box is there.
Nothing. I mean, new gaming franchise.
Yay!
There's one more thing we didn't mention.
Yay!
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, give us our country back. I want my country back. It's my country. Where is it? Give it back.
Pump, 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 pump. Squish, 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 squish. Now you're neon pink.
What you do that for?
Well, I am doing higher area control than you. Squish, 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 pump, 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 pump. Squish, 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 spray, 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 spray. Now everything is neon pink.
What?
Here's mine. Area control. I'm a kid now. I'm a squid now. Splatoon rules. It's not your country anymore. I painted it pink.
You've broken my brain just a tiny bit.
Do you know what I want to see more of?
What do you want to see more of?
Racial Justice Warriors.
Social Justice Warriors?
Yeah.
Right, Larry.
Right, Larry, how you doing?
Oh, mate, I'm exhausted and, in, just the regular amount of pain here. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You doing all right, mate?
Oh, doing all right.
Yeah.
Been a bit grumbly about a thing. I've had a thing that's made me a bit grumbly.
Right, yeah.
Well, I was travelling the other week.
Right,
and, I was at a pretty busy event, and
right,
crowd management is what it is with a busy event. I get it, but there was a thing I saw happening a few times that was miffed me off a bit, which was at this venue I was at. There was sometimes crowd management would send the crowd to go walk longer routes to sort of decongest crowds a bit.
Right.
And they were making exceptions for are you a wheelchair user? Yeah, sure. If you want to just go the short way and via the lift, you can. But they were doing a lot of denying people who were I am also disabled and would really benefit from a shorter route. But I am not using a wheelchair. We're being told, nope, go that long, not accessible route because you are not. The one thing we have decided is you are disabled enough to.
You're
use
not the
short
icon
route.
on the toilet door, so you do not get.
Exactly. And it's one of those things where it's very clear with an event when you're you can see that the security people have not been briefed on accessibility, you can see they don't even know they've picked them up biases of what a disabled person looks like, and the kind of thing where it's very clear what they've got in their head is people are going to try and chance their way past me, so I've set a firm rule in my head, which is wheelchair means they pass. otherwise means they're chancing. And like that kind of shit's just really disappointing to see, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it helps, like, you know, as I mentioned with the whole, like, wheelchair icon thing, like, disabled parking. It's a wheelchair icon. Like, no, I get it that is the icon, but I think that is part of the reason we get so many of these people in, like, car parks going, oh, you're not in a wheelchair. What? You shouldn't have a blue badge. You're not allowed to use other people's badges. Like, it's my badge. I am disabled. I just have an invisible disability.
Yeah.
You know, well, I say invisible, you know, give it 15 minutes, you might find that, you know, I'm not able to walk as well or whatever.
Yeah. It's, you know, someone shouldn't have to, you know, go, I am disabled, pulls up leg, shows prosthetic leg or whatever to be like, I am disabled.
Yeah, or, you know, just even like chronic fatigue, things like that, you know. But I think the part of the problem is, like, it's general public paring things down to the, you know, the most basic version. Yeah, we told you in middle school that the example of disability is like using a wheelchair, and we didn't follow up on that any further, and now you've gone biological essentialism. If you don't use a wheelchair, then you're not a disabled person, because look, that's the icon on the toilet door, that's the icon on the parking space, therefore no wheelchair, no disability.
It's it reinforces some attitudes about what disability means, and it butts up against the idea that people fake disabilities to get benefits, and like, well, if you don't fit what I think a disabled person looks like, then you must be in the secret category of faking disability, and it's just bullshit, and it's tiring.
Absolutely, mate. Yeah. Fancy hug, mate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Good hug, mate. Good hug. Right, I think we're going to have a little lie down.
Oh, sounds lovely.
Nice.
So, Laura,
Yes?
you do things on the internet, and maybe people would like to find those things. Where do?
You can find the stuff I do at Laura K. Buzz pretty much everywhere on the internet. You can find a new episode of Control Alt Access up this week, in which me and Arevia talk at length about Gamescom accessibility and controllers and all of the various things that we've played in the recent weeks, and also one incredibly lengthy and complicated article from IGN that we got to dig into, so that's a whole big thing. You can check out a new episode of Accessibility, talking about the Proteus controller in a lot more depth than we talked about it here. There'll be a new episode of Pogquisition that'll be up this week. There should be an article up on Paste magazine where I talk about my favourite games that I saw at Gamescom.
Yay.
Just look for Laura K. Buzz, you'll find all the stuff. What about you? Where are you at on the internet, Jane?
Well, I don't have the unified branding, but I do have a link tree. It's linktree.ee/Janiac, Janiac. You can find the things I've written, the t-shirts I designed, the music I've made. You can help me justify editing these episodes and keeping them coming out for you and stuff at patreon.com/stonedmonkeyradio. As little as $1 a month. It super helps, so please consider, or maybe a share would be much appreciated. Thank you. That's pretty much it from me, so Laura.
Yes?
Will you sing us out, please, darling?
Until next time, be a stranger.